On February 29th, a Mexican soldier hides behind a rock as he realizes that reporters have seen him on the U.S. side of the border. Several moments later, he ducks back under the barbed wire fence into Mexico. Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my second video of the day, which I rarely do, but there's so much news to go over that I thought I'd put out a second video. So thank you very much if you're here for the second time today. There's really no rhyme or reason to the stories that I'm going to cover on this video. They're going to be all over the place. It's pretty much articles that I think are very interesting, that I think we ought to be informed about. Just like this one right here that we're going to talk about immediately. Before I continue, I wanted to say one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Myocarditis. Thank you very much. That's why I love you. And it just goes to show, ladies and gentlemen, that when you leave your border wide open, eventually even the country will be brazen enough to send soldiers in now and then, just so that they can test the waters. And that's what I think that they were doing here. Now the question is, if their soldiers who are dressed like soldiers and are very visible can get through the border with automatic weapons, what do you think that all of those people that we never caught, never even apprehended crossing the southern border, have gotten across with? That's something to think about. Mexican military incursions on U.S. soil worry border agents. When you have somebody with an automatic weapon coming into the U.S., it's concerning because they do counter surveillance on us, the U.S. Border Patrol Union said. And I'm sure that we do it on them as well. But we, as the United States of America, are making it very easy for them to do it to us by leaving the border completely open. Anyone out there, can you tell me what makes a country if it has no borders? Just a question, but I digress. And before I continue, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last day, the 13th of March, that OUPES is going to be having their sale. So if you're in the market for a solar generator, go take a look at OUPES. You get a good bang for your buck with OUPES, and their machines always do what they say that they do. In addition to that, Simpure still has the U3 filtration system on sale, which is the only gravity-fed filtration system that I know of that has a UV light incorporated into the spigot. As daylight begins to fade at an abandoned illegal immigrant camp at the border wall near Yacumba in California's San Diego County, a couple of Mexican soldiers armed with assault rifles patrol the rocky terrain in the hills above. Below them, white tents along the Mexican side of the border wall signal the army presence as Mexican National Guard troops pull back in a truck. They set up camp here in early February. And then on the 29th, a soldier hides behind a rock as he realizes reporters have seen him on the U.S. side of the border. Several moments later, he ducks back under the barbed wire fence into Mexico. And Mr. Manny Bayon, a National Border Patrol Council spokesman in San Diego, said usually any incursion by the Mexican military is directly reported to headquarters and the White House is notified. And after watching this Epoch Times video of the Mexican soldier, Mr. Bayon said it's obvious that the soldier was on U.S. soil. And he says they should know better. There's a boundary marker on top of that hill. I've been up there and I've seen it. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the question is why was he doing it? These are the questions that we need to ask and we need answers for, especially those that live in border states and border towns, because we want to, as American citizens, feel secured within our own homeland, and that's just not possible when you have a border where anyone is brazen enough to cross, no matter what, and carrying whatever they want to carry. I personally don't think that a nation will invade the United States of America on ground. I mean with troops on ground. If they do so, there must have been a very crazy event that had taken place, like maybe an EMP that took out the power grid to the entire nation, something very massive that would have taken place in order for the population to die off before they put boots on ground. But here, China, ladies and gentlemen, is acting in a way which signifies that they are preparing for war. But for who? China is actively preparing for war, and they say here, this is an opinion with the United States. At a time when their economy is really struggling, the Chinese are increasing military spending and ramping up preparations for war. But who is China preparing to fight a war with? Needless to say, the answer to that question is obvious. Yes, the border dispute between India and China could erupt into something significant. And for those of you that don't know, India and China have had a border dispute for years now. And they say, but that is not likely. The only other opponent that the Chinese would be fighting a major war with would be the United States. And right now, Chinese shipyards are churning out military vessels at a pace that the U.S. simply cannot match. Now, we, the United States of America, do have the mightiest navy in the world. However, ladies and gentlemen, even though they're building ships at a very fast rate, more than likely those ships are not of as high a quality or standard as ours are. I think, my opinion. So here they are prepping, they're putting food away, they're building more arms, more munitions, stocking it up. And what are we doing here in the United States and other Western nations? We're printing money out of thin air, devaluing our own dollars, and then sending those dollars overseas so that other countries can shore up their borders while our borders stay completely open. We're going ahead and spending trillions of dollars in the last several years, trillions of dollars on what? On this green energy initiative that in the end will fail, and I believe that they know it will fail. And we're spending money on dozens of other things that make no sense, that just are not productive and will not give us back a bang for our buck. We are borrowing, I believe it's $4 in order to make $1 worth of value, i.e. GDP. But we won't get into that right now. So who is going to be better prepared in order to fight a drawn-out war? Because that's what wars are. They're attrition. Who's going to last the longest? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can make up your own mind. But I would hope that you're getting prepared personally for you and your family. Now, this is pretty good news for Louisiana and the United States. Louisiana joins 27 other states and passes permitless concealed carry legislation. You mean that they're just following the Constitution? In the days that we live in, ladies and gentlemen, that is something to celebrate, that a state is actually passing a law in order so that they can adhere by the law of the land, which is a good thing, because it just says, hey, listen, you can do this because it is your right. And even though other states want to take that right away, you can have it here in Louisiana. And it's so nice that the number 28 is well above half of the states that make up the U.S. And I do appreciate your support, ladies and gentlemen. The reason being is because some of these subjects that I talk about do get me in trouble. So if you can give the video a like, let it run all the way through. That really, really helps. And also, if you can donate 15 to 30 seconds of your time and let an ad or two run through, no more than 30 seconds, that really helps as well. Because climate change data is based on what? This is what they're saying, not me. Fraud. And scientists around the world are pushing back against the narrative that it's your fault. It's not your fault, ladies and gentlemen, but that's just my opinion because I'm not a scientist. But let's read on. In an attempt to save the world from climate change, the United States government is spending trillions of dollars on multiple projects. Remember what we were just talking about? How the U.S. is spending trillions of dollars on things that, in my opinion, are not as important as securing our nation. But I digress. So it says that the U.S. is spending trillions of dollars on multiple projects that rely on dishonest marketing tactics, money laundering schemes, insider trading, and crony capitalism. If you don't know what crony capitalism is and you think that capitalism is the problem, please educate yourselves. There's a difference between capitalism, which is freedom, and crony capitalism, which is where the government intervenes and allows those that it wants to succeed, and allows those that they want to fail. It's not true freedom. At the root of the climate crisis hysteria is data fraud, and scientists around the world are pushing back against the climate change narrative. Now remember, it's not me saying this, that it's fraud. I'm just reading. Governments around the world are combating a fictional problem that is blown completely out of proportion when compared to actual issues that people face. And to make matters worse, the Biden regime adheres to dogma and relies on its most recent National Climate Assessment Report to argue that human activities are accelerating global warming. The policies coming out of DC seek to restrict, control, or modulate human activities at scale to prevent the planet from getting too hot, pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, which is 100% out of our control. It has, in my opinion, everything to do with that big yellow or white star that's called the sun. Climate activism has become the new religion of the 21st century, and it has. Heretics are not welcome and not allowed to ask questions, said Sarah's founder and astrophysicist Willie Soon. This is coming from an astrophysicist, all right? But good science demands that scientists are encouraged to question the IPCC's dogma. The supposed purity of the global temperature record is one of the most sacred dogmas of the IPCC. When people ask about global warming or climate change, it is essential to ask, and I've talked about this before. So this is coming, ladies and gentlemen, from an astrophysicist. Since when? What time frame? You see, in the past, when I've talked about this, I've said they always show you a chart that starts around the early 1900s. Why? Because prior to then, the world was cold. So if they showed you the time before 1900, people would be like, but wait a minute, why was it so cold back then? The data shows that it has warmed since the 1970s, but that is following a period of cooling from the 1940s, he says. When the temperature data of today is compared to the 19th century, the world seems to have warmed drastically. However, when put into perspective, the 19th century was exceptionally cold and was historically a mini ice age. We've talked about that as well. Because of this, the temperatures of the 21st century could be considered normal, and the higher CO2 levels could be considered more conductive for plant regeneration and agriculture. Once the ppms, the parts per million of CO2 in our atmosphere, drops to below 0.02%, or about 180 or so ppms, plant life starts to die. It cannot be sustained. Therefore, if the powers that be create the net zero utopia that they're always talking about, ladies and gentlemen, there'll be no one here to enjoy it. I'll tell you what, this is going to trigger a lot of people. Study finds that electric vehicles pollute the environment 1,850 times more than gas-powered cars. How is that? I'm going to read a tiny bit, but I will leave the link to all of these articles so you can come and revisit them. A study has found that electric vehicles pollute the environment 1,850 times more than internal combustion engines or vehicles. The 2022 study found that during 1,000-mile journey, EVs released 1,850 times more pollutants into the environment than their gas-powered counterparts due to the heavier weight that eats through the EV's tire. When discussing emissions, most would only consider the smoke and other pollutants belched by cars from their exhaust, but the tire wear also plays a significant role in emitting pollutants. The synthetic rubber used to create tires include certain chemicals that get released into the air, and EVs are significantly heavier than conventional cars due to their massive lithium batteries, which we can get into all of the stuff of how is lithium created or where is lithium mined. Do they use child labor for that? All that kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen. You know what solves this problem? The free market, where people are not coerced into having to buy something because they can no longer afford that thing which they want to buy. Let the free market work and everything will work itself out. Nearly 107 million Americans do not have a job right now. I thought that unemployment was like 3-point-something%. A lot of people are really confused about the state of the economy right now. Large employers are conducting mass layoffs. Remember we talked about that late last year? There's going to be a lot of layoffs, a lot of people losing their jobs this year. And they're doing it all over the country, not only in one particular state or another. And those that are searching for work are having a very difficult time finding work. But meanwhile, the Biden administration and the mainstream media continue to insist that unemployment rate is low and everything is just fine. So what can account for such a big difference in the unemployment numbers and the percentages that they talk about? And I'm just going to go ahead and give you the skinny, ladies and gentlemen. When an adult is not working, they are classified as either unemployed or not in the labor force. That's the big thing. They changed these definitions and numbers a long time ago in order to make it look better to you than what it really is. In February of this year, 6.5 million Americans were considered to be officially unemployed. If that number was accurate, that would be great news, really. But another 100.2 million Americans were considered not to be in the labor force in February. When you add those two numbers together, you get a grand total of 106.7 million Americans not working. In other words, nearly 107 million Americans do not have a job right now, and it's about to get worse. What does not in the labor force mean? Let's say, for example, that you lost your job for whatever reason, and you're getting unemployment, and you're actively looking for another job. You're considered unemployed. Right? That's the pool that you fall in, that you hear, oh, unemployment's 3.8%, it's 3.6%. That's what you fall under. When you're looking for a job, you're collecting unemployment. But let's say that you can't find a job. And let's say that your unemployment benefits run out after, I don't know, I think it's 6 months, and you still can't find a job. But you're still looking for a job. You're still considered unemployed. You're looking for a job. Let's say that finally you're like, I can't take this anymore. I'm done. I quit. I'm quitting society. I'm not getting a job. The heck with it. Now you're considered not in the labor force. You're still not employed, but you've just quit looking. So they've taken those two numbers, they've separated them, and they've given you the number that they want you to hear. Instead of saying unemployment is 40%, they're like unemployment is 4% or 3.8%, etc., because it's a much better number for you to hear. And this is not just one administration that uses this. This is all of them. Think about it. When someone is sitting in the Resolute desk or behind the Resolute desk, as Gregory Manarino says all the time, they want to give you the best news that they can possibly give you. And that is what I disagree with the most with people that get elected into office. They're not supposed to give us the best news that they want us to hear. They're supposed to give us the information as it stands. Whether we like it or not, we need to hear the truth no matter what it is, good or bad. And to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen, financial analyst warns that China will overtake American economy and dollar is finished as global reserve currency. You have to get prepared. If for anything this is going to happen, just not sure when, but 100% this will happen. Why? It's very simple. Go read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffith, ladies and gentlemen, and you will finally realize that the dollar is doomed. It was doomed from the day that it was created, because it was created in order to steal from you your wealth. And you just heard what I said about how many Americans are really unemployed. The dollar may still be called a dollar 10 years from now, but it will not be the same dollar that it is today. Just like today's dollar is not the same dollar that it was 50 years ago. And having said that, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and sign off. I thought I'd bring Lulu over here so she can say hello. Right? She just came from outside and wants a treat. And there's Carmi. Carmi, come here, girl. Come here. Can you? She doesn't want to jump up on me, but there's Carmi. All right, God bless every one of you. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. And Lulu. And Lulu, say hi, Lulu. And Karma's down. There's Karma. I am out.